We were reading about how this kingdom of subtle matter gives us subtle bodies so that we can travel to the different worlds. And when we have to leave our physical body, then we get subtler bodies and subtler bodies and subtler bodies until finally the very highest level, the spirit doesn't need any body, any covering anymore. But when it wants to come back to the earth, then on each level it puts on a little less subtle body, less and less and less, until finally when it comes to earth it has to put on a material body. That's what we've all done. For long before Earth's solid vest was forged by the technique of the atomic void, a lucent envelope of self-disguise was woven round the secret spirit in things. The subtle realms from those bright sheaths are made. This wonder world, with all its radiant boon of vision and inviolate happiness, only for expression cares and perfect form. Fair on its peaks, it has dangerous nether plains. Its light draws towards the verge of nature's lapse. It lends beauty to the terror of the gulfs and fascinating eyes to perilous gods. Invests with grace the demon and the snake. Its trance imposes earth's inconscience. Immortal, it weaves for us death's somber robe and authorizes our mortality. This medium serves a greater consciousness, a vessel of its concealed autocracy. It is the subtle ground of matter's worlds. It is the immutable in their mutable forms. In the folds of its creative memory, it guards the deathless type of perishing things. Its lowered potencies found our fallen strengths. Its thought invents our reasoned ignorance. Its sense fathers our body's reflexes. Our secret breath of untried, mightier force, the lurking sun of an instant's inner sight. Its fine suggestions are a covert fount for our iridescent, rich imaginings, touching things common with transfiguring hues, till even earth's mud grows rich and warm with the skies, and a glory gleams from the soul's decadence. Its knowledge is our error's starting point. Its beauty dawns our mud mask ugliness. Its artist good begins our evil's tale. A heaven of creative truths above, a cosmos of harmonious dreams between, a chaos of dissolving forms below. It plunges lost in our inconscient base. Out of its fall, our denser matter came. Martin, you'll start.
For long before Earth's solid vest was forged, by the technique of the atomic world, the loose envelope of self-disguise was woven around the secret spirit in things.
Yes.
The subtle realms from those bright sheaths are made.
So long before Earth's solid vest, a vest is a clothing, no? This solid clothing of matter, long before matter formed, something else had happened. Earth's solid vest gets forged, actually. Forged. I'll talk about that later. It gets forged by the technique of the atomic void, what we think of as empty space. Somehow in empty space at the beginning of the material universe, matter was formed. The physicists tell us that matter as we know it took quite a long time to be developed. In the very beginning, what they call the Big Bang, when the universe first seems to have emerged, there was nothing like matter as we know it. That it took a very, very long time for this solid vest, this covering of matter, to be forged by the technique of the atomic void. Forging is what a smith does in his workshop. No? He forges metals. He makes them fit to be used as vessels, as swords, as tools. But we also use this word for things that are copies, that are not the genuine article. Counterfeiters, they forge money, false money, forgeries, or people forge artworks, paintings, sell them for lots of money as valuable, but they're not real. So there's a double suggestion in this word here. And whenever it's used in the poem, there's the idea of making something, but that there's also the idea of making something that might be a false copy. So long before matter as we know it was formed, already a lucent envelope of self-disguise was woven round the secret spirit in things. The secret spirit is formless and infinite and eternal. But this world has been created because it has woven around itself a covering. It has disguised itself with a covering. And the first series of coverings, the first covering was lucent, full of light. So those subtle realms which Asvapati is going to be visiting are made out of subtle envelopes, lucent envelopes like that, which the spirit has woven around itself as a kind of disguise or self-expression. Kamla.
This wonder world with all its radiant gloom, of vision and inviolate happiness, only for expression, cares, and perfect form. Fair on its peaks, it has dangerous, never plans. Its light draws towards the verge of nature's lapse. It lends a beauty to the terror of the gods, and fascinating eyes to perilous gods, enveloped with the grace, the damsel and the snake.
Yes. So he says this wonder world, the wonder world that we've been reading about, the kingdom of subtle matter, where everything is so perfect in form, so beautiful. This wonder world which gives this shining boon, this wonderful gift of vision. Everything looks beautiful, everything seems beautiful. It seems to give a gift of happiness which is inviolate, which can't be spoiled or damaged. But still, this wonder world only cares about expression and perfect form. It's a world of forms, beautiful forms. So on its peaks, on its higher levels, it's fair, it's beautiful. But it has dangerous nether planes. Nether means lower. So there are high levels, there are in-between levels, but there are also these lower levels, and they are dangerous because it's lending beauty to terrible things, to those terrible lower worlds that King Asvapati will have to travel through later on. The terror of the gulfs, the deep, dark places. This world gives beautiful, fascinating eyes to dangerous gods, to beings who are very, very dangerous. It gives grace, attractiveness, like a clothing to the demon and the snake. The snake, of course, is often a symbol of the vital energies which can be very dangerous.
It's a trance introduced ourselves in conscience. Immortal, it reads for us death's somber robe and authorizes our mortality.
Yes. So on its peaks, there's this beauty, consciousness, but on its lower levels, when it comes down into this trance of darkness and unconsciousness, that is what brings about our inconscience, the unconsciousness of our matter. That world is immortal, and the beings and the forms there are immortal because they are perfect. But it weaves for us this somber robe, this dark robe of physical matter, which means that we have to die. Our bodies are not immortal. We have to change them. It authorizes our mortality. It gives its seal of authority to our death-bound state. Sarojini?
This medium serves a greater consciousness, a vessel of its
Concealed
autocracy. It is the subtle ground of matter's walls. It is the immortal in their
mutable
forms. In these folds of its creative memory, it grounds the deathless tide of tracing things.
Let's pause there. This medium, this subtle matter, is serving a greater consciousness, higher levels of consciousness. It is a vessel for the hidden, the concealed autocracy of that greater consciousness. That greater consciousness is the one which decides everything, but it does it secretly, concealed, not openly. So that subtle matter too is a vessel, a container for that hidden autocracy of the higher consciousness.
What do you mean autocracy?
Autocracy, your dictionary doesn't tell you.
It just says the German word autokratie.
So you know what that means?
No.
No.
Why?
Sorry. An autocrat is a person who decides everything for himself. He doesn't have to obey any higher authority. A tyrant, yeah, yes. But here, Sri Aurobindo's using it absolutely literally. An autocracy, that hidden authority which has the power to decide everything for all the planes, but it doesn't show its power. It hides it and expresses it through all the other levels of consciousness. So it is the subtle ground, the subtle basis for our material worlds, the worlds of our universe. The subtle plane expresses the immutable, what cannot change, which never changes, which is forever the same, but expressed in their changeable forms. It has a memory, a creative memory. It remembers everything that's ever been. And it's keeping in its memory, as if hidden in folds of cloth. The deathless type of perishing things. It's an ancient idea that all the forms which we see here are copies, imperfect expressions of perfect forms which exist on higher levels. We find this idea particularly in the Greek philosopher Plato. So here Sri Aurobindo is confirming that. He says that there are perfect types, prototypes of everything. All the things which are perishable, which come into existence in our world and which then disappear again. But there's an eternal type of each thing. And these perishing forms couldn't come into existence if somewhere in the universal consciousness they were not remembered. They were not kept safe so that they could be reproduced again and again and again and again. So the next lines, who's going to read these? It's lowered potencies. Slava?
It's lowered potencies found our fallen strength. Its thoughts invents our reason ignorance. Its sense others our body's reflexes.
Yes. So it's talking about this medium of subtle matter. So it's not only expressing the perfect and the immutable and remembering the deathless type of perishing things. When its powers are made less, that is the basis for our physical strengths, which have fallen, which are on a lower level than the higher consciousness. The thought of that subtle world invents our kind of thought, our reasoned ignorance. And its senses, we can see the beauty of the flowers, we can smell the perfume, we can touch, no? But all these senses that we have in our physical body are imperfect developments of deeper and truer senses. So its sense has given birth to the reflexes, the automatic reactions of our body. Did you read, Joel? Yeah.
Our secret breath of untried mightier force, the lurking sun of an instant inner sight, its fine suggestions are covert found for our iridescent, rich imaginings, touching things common with transfiguring hues, till even earth mud grows rich and warm with the skies, and a glory gleams from the soul's decadence.
So the atmosphere of that subtle world is a secret breath, a secret energy for our untried, mightier force, a greater and more powerful energy which we haven't experienced yet. We haven't tried it out. We haven't experienced it. It's also a hidden sun. We might get, there might be a gleam from that hidden sun, and we experience for an instant some glimpse of inner sight. No? It makes suggestions to us. It's fine suggestions. And those suggestions, they're a secret covered, it's covered up, we don't see it, a source, a fount, which gives rise to our rich imaginings. It's one of the wonderful powers of our consciousness, is imagination. We can think of all kinds of wonderful and beautiful things. It's a support for our creative possibilities, no? He says our imaginings can be iridescent, glowing with all the shifting colors of the rainbow. Oak has made this cascade of CDs beside the road here. You have seen it? No? So that's beautiful because it's iridescent. It's glowing with all these different colors, no? Shimmering, iridescent. If we see oil, petrol on the surface of some water, very, very subtle colors are there, no? Iridescent. So that other world, that world of subtle beauty, is the source for some of our beautiful, rich imaginings which touch common earthly things with transfiguring colors. We see them in another way, surrounded by light, until even our muddy earth grows rich and warm with all the glorious colors of the skies. And a glory gleams from the soul's decadence. Decadence is a term we use often for civilizations, that they've reached a high peak of achievement and then there's been a decadence. Or people have reached a high level of developed civilization, but then they fall away from that and it all becomes very ugly and ordinary. Here perhaps Sri Aurobindo means that our soul has come down from its great heights of purity. Here it is, it has to inhabit the physical body, and it's even in this state, through these rich imaginings, these suggestions from subtler worlds, there can be a gleam of glory from the higher worlds. Dana.
Its knowledge is our level's starting point. Its beauty dawns our mud mask ugliness. Its artist good begins our evil's tale.
He's emphasizing again and again that it is like a source of our world, something behind. So the knowledge of that world is the starting point for our error and our ignorance. Its beauty here in our world, it puts on this mud mask, this distortion, this loses its perfect beauty that it has in that world.
Dons means like
To don just means to put on. Before I came out, I donned a new dress. There, what is beautiful is good and true. That art is good, what is valued because it's beautiful, actually begins our tale of what is not good, of what is evil, distorted, because it does this disguising work, no? Shalini.
A heaven of created truths above, a cosmos of harmonious dreams between, a chaos of dissolving forms below. It plunges, lost in our inconscient base. Out of its fall, our denser matter came.
Yes. So on the higher levels, a heaven of creative truths. A little lower down, a universe, a cosmos. Cosmos, we use this word just for the universe, but in Greek, the ancient Greek that this word came from, cosmos meant beauty, beauty and harmony. And that's why we put on cosmetics to make ourselves look more beautiful. No? Cosmos, beauty. So in between, there's this harmonious, beautiful organization of dreams. Below that, there's the opposite of cosmos. The opposite of cosmos is chaos, disorder and disharmony. A chaos of dissolving forms below in its lower levels. It goes deeper and deeper. It plunges. This world gets lost in our inconscient base, in the lowest level of unconscious matter. So out of the fall, the downward plunge of that world, our denser matter came. That's the subtle, fine matter. Our matter is denser, heavier, and thicker, and more unconscious. Praveen.
Thus taken was God's plunge into the night. This fallen world became a nurse of souls, inhabited by concealed divinity.
So this is how, first of all, the atomic void has formed an envelope of matter. First of all, the spirit covered itself, no? And then there's been these further developments. This is how God has plunged down into the darkness of unconsciousness. Here.
From now on, he talks about the physical matter.
Let's see. This fallen world, that's about our world, of course. Yes, yeah. But this world is a nurse of souls. It is nourishing, protecting souls. These souls are inhabited by concealed divinity. In all the souls inhabiting all the material forms, the divine is hidden. because God has plunged down into the night. So then the reverse process starts. First there's the plunge, and then there's the waking up, Amrita.
A big walk and living in the meaningless void. A worldwide mission strove towards life and thought. A consciousness plucked out from mindless sleep.
So things began to wake up in our world. Here we are living on this little speck of earth in the vastness of the apparently meaningless emptiness of space. But in that, if we think about the early universe, when matter began to be formed, when stars were lit up, there was apparently no consciousness. The consciousness was hidden. There was no knowledge. A worldwide nescience began to make an effort towards first life and then thought. It's the process of evolution. A consciousness plucked out from mindless sleep. The mindless sleep of matter gets woken up first into the form of consciousness we call life, and then into the form of consciousness we call mind or thought.
What is to pluck out?
To pluck out. If you've seen a small dog fall into a pond, you will get hold of it and pluck it out. Plucked out, yes. To pluck, we can pluck a flower. We take it off its stem. But when he says plucked out, there's the sense of rescue. Like something has been hidden and you bring it out to light. I should have asked Amrita to read the next line also. Will you read it? No. All here?
Okay. All here is driven by an ancient will.
Yes. Everything here in our world is driven. It has to evolve. It's being driven. But the will which is driving it seems to be completely unconscious and not to have any senses. It's the will in matter. We don't take that seriously, but that there is that will towards life and thought. You always look so puzzled, Sebastian.
Thus fallen, inconscient, frustrate, dense, inert, sunk into inanimate and torpid dross, earth lay, a drudge of sleep, forced to create by a subconscious yearning memory, left from a happiness dead before she was born, an alien wonder on her senseless breast.
Yes. So because there's this plunge into the night, here's Earth, the Earth goddess, the principle of matter, unconscious, asleep, in deep coma. But even in that sleep, she has to work hard. A drudge is somebody who has to work hard without any enjoyment or fun or relaxation. In her sleep, Earth is laboring so hard because within her there's a memory that she can't formulate that memory. It's subconscious, but it's yearning, it's longing for something. No? That memory is left over from a happiness dead before she was born. Before Earth took this plunge and became Earth, she was on blissful heights above. No? She left that blissful state behind when she came and made herself into the body of our state. No? So it's that memory, subconscious, unconscious memory, that's driving evolution to happen. That I often wonder about the next line, whether it shouldn't really belong to the next sentence. Read it like that, please, Ganga Lakshmi. Yes. An alien wonder.
An alien wonder of a sunset's breath. This mire must harbor the orchid and the rose. From the blind and willing substance must emerge a beauty that belongs to happy spheres.
It makes sense if we read it like that. This mire, this dirty mud of earth, must harbor, must take care of, contain and take care of the orchid and the rose. From this blind, unwilling substance of matter must emerge a beauty that belongs to happier spheres, happier realms, higher planes of existence. Did you read, Joel? Yeah. Okay, so I'll read. This is the destiny. But what about Dana? Did you read that? Yeah. This is the destiny bequeathed to her, as if a slain god left a golden trust to a blind force and an imprisoned soul. An immortal Godhead's perishable parts she must reconstitute from fragments lost, reword from a document complete elsewhere her doubtful title to her divine name. Bequeath. Before somebody dies, if they have valuable properties, they will write down or let people know what they want to happen with those properties, perhaps for their children or their grandchildren. So, the earth has been bequeathed, she's been left certain things, a destiny, some work that she has to do. No? Sri Aurobindo says it's as if a god who has been killed, who's been slain, has left, has bequeathed this golden trust, some great responsibility entrusted to this blind force, this imprisoned soul which is in matter. The soul has to wake up and the force has to become conscious in order to fulfill its destiny. So her task, I don't know whether you know the Egyptian stories of Isis and Osiris. These two Egyptian gods, brother and sister, co-rulers, and Osiris's body gets cut up and scattered everywhere in the world, and Isis, the mother, has to find all those parts and put them together again. It's like that. Earth has to put everything together again. These perishable parts of an immortal Godhead. Actually, the God can't be slain, but his parts have been scattered everywhere in the material world. She has to put them all back again. She must reconstitute them from fragments lost. Or it's like having to put together a document, a very important document with a very important message. That document is complete somewhere else, but she has to bring it into existence here, reword it here, because that document proves her right to her divine name. At the moment here on earth, we think all this mud, all this mire, how can this be divine? All this physical stuff. We don't believe that matter has that right to be divine, but she has to prove that. All that's left is this dust, a residue. That's all she's inherited. But in this shapeless, formless dust, Earth is carrying the possibility of all things. We'll stop there for today. For long before Earth's solid vest was forged by the technique of the atomic void, a loosened envelope of self-disguise was woven round the secret spirit in things. The subtle realms from those bright sheaths are made. This wonder world, with all its radiant boon of vision and inviolate happiness, only for expression cares and perfect form. Fair on its peaks, it has dangerous nether plains. Its light draws towards the verge of nature's lapse. It lends beauty to the terror of the gulfs, and fascinating eyes to perilous gods. Invests with grace the demon and the snake. Its trance imposes Earth's inconscience. Immortal, it weaves for us death's sombre robe and authorizes our mortality. This medium serves a greater consciousness. a vessel of its concealed autocracy. It is the subtle ground of matter's worlds. It is the immutable in their mutable forms. In the folds of its creative memory, it guards the deathless type of perishing things. Its lowered potencies found our fallen strengths. Its thought invents our reasoned ignorance. Its sense fathers our body's reflexes. Our secret breath of untried mightier force, the lurking sun of an instant's inner sight, its fine suggestions are a covered fount for our iridescent rich imaginings, touching things common with transfiguring hues, till even earth's mud grows rich and warm with the skies, and a glory gleams from the soul's decadence. Its knowledge is our error's starting point. Its beauty dawns our mud mask ugliness. Its artist good begins our evil's tale. A heaven of creative truths above, a cosmos of harmonious dreams between, a chaos of dissolving forms below. It plunges lost in our inconscient base. Out of its fall our denser matter came. Thus taken was God's plunge into the night. This fallen world became a nurse of souls inhabited by concealed divinity. A being woke and lived in the meaningless void. A worldwide nescience strove towards life and thought. A consciousness plucked out from mindless sleep. All here is driven by an insentient will. Thus fallen, inconscient, frustrate, dense, inert, sunk into inanimate and torpid drowse, earth lay, a drudge of sleep, forced to create by a subconscient yearning memory left from a happiness dead before she was born. An alien wonder on her senseless breast, this mire must harbour the orchid and the rose. From her blind, unwilling substance must emerge a beauty that belongs to happier spheres. This is the destiny bequeathed to her, as if a slain god left a golden trust to a blind force and an imprisoned soul. An immortal Godhead's perishable parts she must reconstitute from fragments lost, reword from a document complete elsewhere her doubtful title to her divine name.